Week 2. We are Gene Black and Edward Muhammad, and we are from Align to Enlighten. And of course, this is our podcast, which is Everyday Enlightenment. Mr. Edward, how you feeling today, sir?
Feeling great, bro. Feeling real good this Saturday morning. Ready to talk about a few things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We had a great conversation yesterday, that we wanted to kind of get into today. And it was talking about inspiration and motivation. And we started saying inspiration versus motivation, but it's not really a versus because basically it's not like a competition between the two things, right? It's just two different paths. One path is motivating, the other path is inspiring or inspiration. And we were having a great conversation. I thought about some of the great motivational speakers that are out there. I mean, fantastic people in their lanes. Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, a few others that you had mentioned, great motivational speakers. But I think we talked a lot about the difference though between what's motivating and what's inspirational, right? And what's inspiring, and the difference between those two things. And then we eventually led that conversation to how do individuals actually find and locate their own inspiration? How do you find that? People say, well, I don't feel inspired, especially right now in COVID-19, the political drama that we have, the police murders and brutality that's going on, racial tension. People are finding it very hard to find inspiration or be inspired. So we were talking about how do we help people identify their inspirations, right? Because what you and I spoke about, Edward, was that inspiration and your purpose are closely aligned with this life. So anyway, that's what we want to talk about today. What are your thoughts on some of that?
Well, I think to have a great conversation about it, we need to look at the differences of the two. And I think that we talked yesterday about how inspiration comes from a place of being drawn or pulled in a direction,
right? Versus
motivation being pushed, if you will. In my experience, anytime that I've sought motivation or tried to get motivated, if you will, I found myself faced with a level of resistance. Your motivation comes from, in my opinion, from something of lack. You want something that you don't have. You're trying to get somewhere that you're not, which oftentimes brings with it a level of resistance. So, when we talk about motivation, we talk about motivational speakers, and we're talking about any type of action-oriented movement brings with it a level of resistance. And we also talked about how, from my opinion, motivation is not sustainable. That's why motivational speakers have such great longevity, because they motivate people. It lasts for a few days, a few years sometimes, and then usually people are right back where they were before.
Wow.
And that's because, it from the space in which motivation comes from, as opposed to inspiration comes from a more of a sense of love, abundance, alignment. And so it gives you a more sustainable, it's more sustainable.
Yes. Absolutely.
Inspiration is like, you and I took physics when we were in school. You understand the power of leverage. You understand the how you can move something large with a relatively small lever. And that's how I view inspiration. I look at it as having leverage and being able to, when I'm inspired to do something, it doesn't take a whole lot of work. But when I'm motivated to do something, sometimes it takes a whole lot of push on my part to get there.
Right. Right. Man, okay, so you said a few things then in there that struck me. Okay, so let's put a pin in, you mentioned resistance and allowance. Now
Right,
that's a whole different conversation that we need to have on a different day, for sure. But I mean, in a nutshell, when we consider allowance and resistance, you know, there's those are the two forces at work all of the time, right?
right, right,
And when we are, and it's not to be misunderstood as allowance meaning that, you know, you lay down and get rolled over, but allowance is basically how energy is flowing. Bottom line, how energy, either energy is flowing or either it's not. And if it's not flowing, then it is being resisted. It's being, resistance is present, right? The way that we think about things, the way that we view scenarios or situations or circumstances, whatever we are feeling in that situation, we're either allowing or either we are resisting against that, right? And when we want to see our desires fulfilled, then we need to allow energy to flow. That is the allowance of it, right? So we'll talk. That's a deeper conversation, but you know what you said though, I think was dead on, which is when I'm considering inspiration. You know, inspiration, I don't, like you said before, it's a push and a pull. For me, when I consider inspiration, it doesn't take anything for me to get up and go do whatever that thing is because I'm inspired to go do it, right? I don't need anybody to push me out the door to say, hey, you got to go get this done. Because if I'm inspired, I'm like, man, I can't wait to get at it. I can't wait to go after it, you know, because I'm already inspired and it comes from within. There was something that we had posted on Align to Enlighten's Instagram a while back, and I'm gonna paraphrase. Hopefully I can get it right, but it was like um, it says something like to the fact that when we are motivated, we get things done, but when we are inspired, we have the power to change the world. And this is the difference between those things. Like you said, when I am motivated or someone or something is motivating me, then yeah, I'm like, okay, that's the task. That's what I'm gonna get up as action oriented. I'm gonna go get that done, sure. But when I'm considering inspiration, the one adjective that jumps out at me is passion. I'm passionate about whatever I'm inspired to do. There's a passion within me. And if anybody's ever felt inspired to do anything, then you know exactly what we're talking about because it's something that comes from within. It doesn't come from an external force asking you or pushing you to do something. It doesn't come from an external force. Inspiration comes from within.
right,
So, you know, a lot of times people ask us, or, you know, when the times when you and I, Edward, have been, you know, speaking at workshops or speaking to groups of people, you know, and you know, sometimes they want to characterize us as, hey, you guys are very motivational. You guys are motivational speakers, you know,
right,
and one thing that we fall back on, no, we're not motivational speakers. We're inspirational speakers because our intentions are to help people find and locate their inspiration. Because to your point, if we can get you, if we can help you find your inspiration, that's internal, that's long lasting, that's yours forever. You don't need Edward or Gene to keep you there when you're inspired, right?
right, right,
And don't get it twisted. I mean, this is not a knock to any motivational speakers. I mean, I think everybody has, this universe is abundant and everybody has a place in this universe for whatever it is that they do. And so this is not a knock to any motivational speakers or motivational speaking at all. I think those are wonderful things to do. But today we just want to talk about the difference between those things, you know.
you touched
Uh,
you know so couple of things to my mind as you were talking, and it's like you took them right out of my head. So, like for
that's
real,
how we do all the
that's how
time.
we do all the time. Like I was gonna talk about that. Now you talk no, but now you so that's exactly what I was gonna touch on was how well what came to my mind was that you know we talk a lot about living and loving unconditionally,
Yeah,
and I think that inspiration and motivation brings those topics to my mind because motivation is on condition. You know,
right,
like in other words, it's like you said, it's external. It's based on some external condition happening to get you motivated.
right,
Life coach, workout coach, your wife, your husband, you know, your boss, a
Right.
song. You know, we get motivated from music all the time, and
Oh
certainly
yeah.
it has its purpose. You know, like I
Yes.
do. You working out, man. You put the right song on, you could be done with the workout. You put the right
Yeah.
song on, and you at least got another 15 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and so, but that comes with the price as a cost, in my opinion, as opposed to when you're inspired to do something. To your point, it comes from within. It's unconditional,
Right.
which is the driving force of sustainability to me.
Right.
And you touched right on it. And so this kind of segues into the biggest part of the conversation to me. And again, what was brought up between you and I yesterday is how to create inspiration,
Right.
how to create desire. When you don't have desire, how do you get inspired without incorporating a level of resistance into your inspiration? In other words, you don't want to. Was it getting inspired is kind of like an oxymoron. Like you try not to use those words simultaneously in the same sentence. When you and I
Right.
talk about inspiration, it's allowance. We allow the inspiration to come, and we know there are many tools, resources that we both use and have incorporated to allow inspiration to take place.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, man.
Exactly. And it's funny because um, you're right. It is an oxymoron to say, okay, getting inspired, right? Because inspiration should come organically, or we expect it to be organic, or we expect it to be a natural process. However, it's part of our conversation today. Well, if you don't feel inspired, then how do you locate that inspiration? How do you find it, right? And you and I we did a we had several workshops in California. One of the ones I remember specifically were we were talking to some high school students, and we were talking to them about inspiration and finding their purpose in life. And one of the things that we were talking to them about was, when you're looking to identify what you're inspired to do, first of all, there's no right or wrong answers to you as an individual of what is inspirational to you, because every single individual has their own inspiration. That is what's so unique about all of us. What inspires me may not inspire Edward, and vice versa, and so on and so forth. So whatever does inspire me may be unique to me, and it gets me excited. That's the importance, right? And so when we were talking to these kids in California, we told them, we said, hey, we asked the question, how many of you are inspired? A few kids raised their hand. What are you inspired about? What are you inspired to do? A couple of them spoke up of what they were inspired to do. They were inspired to, one kid said he was inspired to get into politics. Another kid said he was inspired to help people from the medical realm, so on and so forth. But a lot of kids, the point was a lot of kids didn't have an answer, right? Which was completely okay. It was completely okay. And the way we helped direct them was we said, okay, take some time, to simply sit down and think about what makes you happy. What would you do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even if you weren't getting paid to do it? What is that? You know, these are ways that we start to uncover or peel the onion back to find where our true inspiration lies. Because inspiration really is at the depth of your soul, right? So inspiration is at the depth of your soul, and therein lies all of the answers that you need, all the answers that you have to the questions that you may have, or you may not know what you're inspired to find or inspired to do. I'm sorry. This is where it lies. But the issue and the challenge a lot of times is we don't, especially as adults, we don't allow ourselves that space to even consider or think about what we may be inspired to do. Why? Because we're surrounded by the noise of life. You know, I got to pay
Right.
these bills. I got a mortgage to pay. I got a job to do. I got to get these kids to school. I got to, do all these other things that jumble up, or we're connected to our cell phone and we're texting, or we're on social media. all this other stuff, this noise blocks out our even consideration of what we may be inspired to do. So
Right.
the very first step is to sit down, get into a quiet space with yourself, and think about and meditate and pray and just be one with yourself about what are you passionate about? What makes you excited? That's the first step. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that, with this one caveat. You know, in talking to my daughter uh, uh, and other uh, people of her peer group, um, they've expressed that. She's expressed that to me. You know, like wanting to know how to find your passion, how to get inspired, if you will, and those sorts of things. And to your point, that is certainly the first step. I think the caveat for me is understanding that, or being careful, that is like I told her, you know, in first of all, to change the language. We talked about this or two. This is not something you should be looking for like it's over there.
Right.
Your inspiration is over there, or your passion is out there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's here. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is about, you know, creating your passion, creating your inspiration from within. You know, that step right there to me is important, so that you alleviate any certain angst about it. Because, you know, in quote unquote find passion, well, where is it? Well, you know, I'm doing this. You talked about this last week. Now I don't feel what I should feel. You
Uh-huh.
know, it's a certain anxiousness about where it is, as opposed to allowing it to flourish from within. And how that goes about, from my experience, is so simple that it's hard. You know, and that is just doing things that are fun,
Yes.
doing things, spending time in recreation,
Right.
like, you know, but doing those things, having an awareness of uh
The moment.
yes, right, and your antennas are alert towards the inspiration. So
Yes.
again, you're not trying to find something, but you're saying, you know, I spend a lot of time in yoga. I come out of yoga, or sometimes right in yoga, I have a thought in my mind that
Mm-hmm.
I'm inspired to do something that's been lingering on me for a long time. You play golf, you can
Yeah.
probably attest to the same thing. Or you've heard people talk about being inspired from being taking a hot shower.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
Right.
what I tell my daughter is, you know, first of all, just spend more time doing things that make you feel good.
Yes.
And we talked
Yes.
about this a long time ago, you and I gave the analogy uh, in the book that you and I wrote,
What's the name of it?
uh, Align to Enlighten, the path from the path to joy and peace.
That's right.
So shameless plug right there. So no, but we talked about that, and how when you engage in something that makes you feel good, it's like a thread. And
Mm.
so inspiration, passion is not something that you have to go looking for. Spend time engaging in things, to your point, that you would do for free, regardless if money was not an object. If you were just living a life of no bills, what would you be doing?
Right.
You know, and if somebody says, I don't know what I would be doing, then my answer to that person would be, okay, so you don't have to know what you would be doing.
Right.
What I would suggest for you to do is you do know what's fun to you. Most people are gonna say, well, yeah, I know what's fun, and they don't, and that doesn't have to be uh, jet skiing on the Caribbean. It could be something as
Right.
small as taking a walk. For me, I enjoy taking a walk. It's very
Right.
enjoyable. It puts me in a state of well-being.
Right.
So I would encourage any listener listening to this, find the activity that puts you in a really feel-good space of well-being, and then pull at that thread.
Yes. Exactly. And pull at that thread and keep pulling at that thread I mean, keep pulling at it, because this is again leading you down a path. You know, and when we talked about the difference between motivational speakers and inspirational speakers, right? A lot of times when I've listened to motivational speakers, there's a lot of physical activity that, you know, they're asking you to take. And again, there's nothing wrong with any of that. There's a lot of physical activity they're asking you to take, right? From what you and I speak about is there's a lot of spiritual activity that we're asking you to take. So as you were just saying,
Speak on it.
it's about being present in that moment, right? It's about doing that thing that you just simply like to do, simply for your own joy and for your own passion. And if you have the mindset that you are in an inspirational place, if you have the mindset that you are seeking inspiration, and then you put yourself in situations where you are simply enjoying it for the fact that you are enjoying it in that particular moment, inspiration can then be allowed. We talked about allowance and resistance. It can be allowed to flow. That energy can now flow freely. When we are in a physically action-oriented kind of space, then we're looking to go and hustle it, muscle it. I got to go find it. And to your point, that gives us a bit of angst, or it certainly does for me sometimes. When I know, okay, I got to go physically do this thing or whatever, and I got to go physically discover it, and I got to go get it right now and figure it out. Well, that offers resistance to the energy that is trying to flow. Whereas if I just simply relax, knowing I have an intention for that inspiration to be found, and simply be in that moment, I know it will be discovered. You know, one thing that we started doing here in my household recently is grounding, right? Grounding, some people call it earthing. And Edward, you told me that yeah, it was something that you had been doing for years now, and it was, so it's a brand new discovery to me. But in this example of understanding inspiration and where it comes from and how to get in that particular place, and letting your activity be from a spiritual standpoint, earthing or grounding has been phenomenal for me. And what that is in a nutshell is, you know, we used to do this as kids when you and I lived in Memphis. You know, run outside in the summertime, we had no shoes on, no socks on, you know, and this was the kid's life. You know, it was a wonderful thing, running up and down the street. It was all fun, you know.
Right, right.
And then you come into, you know, high school, young adulthood, you stop doing those things. Well, recently, my wife was like, we're gonna do grounding every day. And what we do is we go in the backyard, we take off our shoes, take off our socks, and simply let our toes run in the grass. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I sat there, and we do this for at least 30 minutes, right? The first time I sat in that grass with my feet, you know, no shoes, no socks, I felt, I can't even describe to you. I can't even put into words what I felt. But in a nutshell, it was a peace, it was a calm, it was a tranquil, it was grounding. My God, it was grounding, seriously, in every literal sense of the word. It was grounding my spirit with our Mother Earth. It was grounding the energy that I felt from my own body and also with the earth. And just to be clear, this isn't a metaphysical mumbo jumbo, you know, pixie dust fairy tale type situation. You mentioned physics earlier. Look this up. If you don't have to believe me, you can look it up for yourself. We are all electrical beings. We are all energy, electrical beings. This is you can look this up. This is Einstein has a whole paper on this whole entire thing, right? A whole process on how energy and electrodes work in our human bodies, and also with the electromagnetic waves throughout the earth, and how that's all connected. So taking your shoes and socks off and being grounded with the planet, like seriously, puts me in a space of just complete spiritual allowance. And so as I'm there and I'm thinking, when my intentions of being inspired to do what's next in my life, and to find that out and start to pull that thread, not knowing where it's going to go, but simply following that thread of inspiration, that is complete joy, bliss, satisfaction, calming, you know, especially in a time like this that we're living in today. That is the best piece in my mind in terms of as one of the other processes to identifying inspiration is getting grounded with yourself, you know. And like you said, in yoga, I'm sure in yoga, I mean, you're an avid yoga practicer. I'm sure you find that all the time, that kind of peace and grounding and tranquility in doing that, which allows your inspirations to develop and grow. Right? I mean, that's what it is.
That's it. Absolutely. I agree with you 1000%. You know, and as we continue to have discussions around what we talked about last week in terms of reformation, in terms of consciousness and awareness, and
Yes.
now we're talking about inspiration, and we can certainly tie that into you know, what we're going through today as a society and as a culture. And what's fascinating to me about inspiration, and it has been for a long time, is how, you know, it's very interesting to me. And you and I talk about it all the time. You coined the phrase, you know, hustling, being muscling, which
Right.
was real cool from the beginning with me. But because it's so true, you know. And what I was about to say that's fascinating to me is that you can have yourself in alignment and move things, speaking of what I was talking about earlier, much heavier and much more challenging
Yes.
than you can physically or action oriented, from an action oriented place. You know, you can move more things and get more things done and have more power non-physically than you can physically. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I know that I've learned. And I feel like as a mass consciousness society and culture, most people would benefit from internalizing, going back to that understanding. I say going back because, I mean, this is what we're giving is not anything new. These are ancient old tenets that have been
Exactly.
subscribed, you know, about the walking bare feet, you know, and that sort of thing. So these aren't new concepts, but just going back and repackaging, opening this up again and remembering, if you will,
Yes.
that the power comes from within. The greatest power and leverage that we can harness comes from non-physical.
Yes.
I was thinking about, and so tying that into what we're talking about today in terms of the current state of consciousness crisis that we experience right now, and we want to move something. We want to have something to go from here to here.
Right.
We want to see something different take place.
Right.
And it's not anything necessarily tangible that we can put our hands on and take this cup and set it over here.
Right.
You know, when we talk about racism, when we talk about the brutality that many are experiencing right now, it's not something that we can just move with our physical strength, although many of us think that's the answer.
Right.
You know, what you and I are trying to convey is that you have more leverage taking a more non-physical, energetic, spiritual standpoint to move any in what seems insurmountable challenge. You know,
Right.
the scriptures talk about, and I know you remember this, you know, when it says, you will have the power to say to the mountain, be moved, and the mountain will move.
Right.
Well, you know, metaphorically, we know what that means. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not talking about a physical mountain, although we can have that discussion too at a later point about, you know, moving physical things around also. But for now, the metaphorical analogy that means, obviously, well, for me, in my perception, is an insurmountable challenge. A
Right.
mountain is huge, and many of us, you've had many mountains. I've had many mountains in my life that seemed like it wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
But
Right.
through the power of inspiration, through the leverage of using my non-physical power, I said to the mountain, move, mountain, and the mountain was able to be moved.
Exactly.
So your
Exactly.
thoughts in tying that into what, what we're kind of currently going through.
Exactly. 100%, and we talked about that last week in terms of, you know, everything that you see in the physical was first, it started as a thought. That's what we talked about last week. When you consider inspiration, inspiration is the catalyst to creation. Okay. So,
No, no, no,
every,
no, no, no. Say that again. Hold on. You can't just go past that, bruh. No, no. You said what now? Where's
I say,
my paper at? Yes, sir.
right. I said inspiration is the catalyst for creation. That's the
Beautiful.
way, that's the way it
Beautiful.
works, you know.
Beautiful.
And from the beginning, we are in my mind, and in your mind, I speak for you as well. We are God's perfect creations. Okay. And one of the main reasons why we are God's perfect creations is because we're the only being that perpetuates his creation. So we're the only being that perpetuates his creation. All other animals on this planet act within their own order, act within their own instinct and their own purpose. The lion on the African plain, he's going to do, or she's going to do what they are naturally born to do, right? They're going to do all those things and follow all their natural instincts, and they are perfect in what they do. For us, with the logic, with the imagination, with the innovation that we have within ourselves, we are God's perfect creation because we perpetuate creation.
Right.
And we're perpetuating creation through our own imagination and through our own inspiration.
Right.
This,
Right.
this is
Right.
why it's so imperative that we hone in and tap in to what we are inspired to do.
Absolutely.
Because,
Absolutely.
right, it ties into our purpose.
Well, if I can jump in, and again, coming from here, you just sucked it right out of my head. We talked about it yesterday, and I wrote about it last week, following our discussion last week, to understand that, how do I put it? What we're seeing right now is a state of disempowerment to me.
Yes.
No, uh, asking or declaring that your life matters, in my opinion, comes from a state of disempowerment. And I
Right.
feel that, to touch right into what you're talking about right now, the disempowerment that we're witnessing right now comes from the fact that we are not acting in our natural state. And we're not acting from, our place of our passion and inspiration. And anytime you talked about the lion, we could talk about the sun, we could talk about
Yeah.
any of God's creations. Right. Us, the human being, being the highest of those from our perspective. All other things act in accordance to their nature that God created them to do. The sun shines like it's supposed to.
Right.
All through nature, we can see that the human being, even the animals that walk the earth, the fowl that fly, they act in accordance to their nature, their purpose, their creation. We are the only
Right.
ones given the gift and the curse, if you will, to be able to decide. We can decide to act in our purpose, or we can decide to act in any way that we choose to, which is in a blessing in and of itself. But I think that the more that we realize our true creation, our true purpose, and act in accordance with the nature from which we were created, there lies our power. There lies the ability to move mountains, to make changes that seem insurmountable. That awareness of who and what we are, to me. So
Exactly. Man, that's so right. I mean, and yes. So when we consider when we consider the feeling that we have right now, especially as African Americans in this country, in terms of disempowerment, you hit it dead on the head, which is understanding who we are in the first place. Not only as African Americans, but as human beings in the first place, and understanding first that we are first spiritual beings and human beings second, which we talked about that a little bit last week as well. Then when we start to operate And well, first, when we align ourselves with that understanding, and then we start to operate within that space, then to your point, then we don't have a feeling of disempowerment. We have a feeling of empowerment. And that's what Align to Enlighten is all about. It has been from day one. We talk about spiritual empowerment. So if everything that we see on this planet in the physical started as a thought, whether it was God's thought when he created this planet and every living thing here, or whether it's our own humanistic thoughts when we come up with new inventions and new things and new technology or whatever, it all began as a thought, right? So we were empowered with those thoughts, with those inspirations to create something new. So we have that power has not dissipated. The only thing that has changed is our focus on that power or our lack of focus on that power. That's the only thing that has changed. And so the same goes for inspiration, getting back to our topic today, which is how do you empower yourself? How do you empower your inspiration? First is simply by being, we already talked about being silent and being in that space or taking spiritual actions to align your soul with the allowance of that energy to flow so you can, so that inspiration can grow, right? So inspiration can be manifested in your thoughts, in your mind, in your day-to-day activities. Once you have located that inspiration, to your point, you said earlier, Edward, I mean, a lot of times we think, and it's only because we've been socialized to take this physical action now. So let's say I'm inspired to be, this singer and entertainer, which I can't sing worth anything, so I'm not going to try. But I mean, let's just say I'm inspired to be this singer entertainer person. Our next thoughts a lot of times is, okay, I got to make a demo tape. Let me go shop that. I got to go hustle this and hustle that. Let me get in front of these people and do this. But all these physical actions are taken. And don't get it twisted. There's nothing wrong with taking physical action. The issue and the challenge is a lot of times that doesn't have to be your first step. It might be your step number 8 or 9 or 10 down the road. Your first step,
yes,
would be, getting in line with your spirit and your soul and what your expectations are. Envision yourself in that space. See yourself being that singer entertainer. Get your energy aligned with what that feels like. Be in the moment of that period. Stop jumping to the end of the story on what the end of the story needs to be. I need to be on, and just focus on what you feel right now.
Right.
Love being that singer, love being that entertainer, simply for the passion of doing it.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely. And then as you become more and more inspired, here's how the universe works. When you are emitting that energy, we talked about energy last week as well. When you are emitting that energy and expectation of that singer, entertainer person that you want to be, and you have that expectation of being that, the law of attraction works 100% of the time. The law of attraction will, things come into your pathway, people come into your experience, your life experience that align with what you have emitted, right? I mean, that's the way the energy and everything works here.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And again, so many that you just dropped on. Probably the last thing that I'd like to say is that just to tie into what you're talking about is that going back to the thread pulling. If I want people to know that you don't have to know what your passion is. I want to reiterate that. The main thing to do is to follow your impulses. Be in the moment is what you said. Follow your impulses, no matter how small you think they are. Because, point again, once you follow that seemingly insignificant, minute impulse, it's not insignificant and minute. It is the universe calling you. You have a thought, I want to do something. It might be something that you don't even normally do. And you say, where is this coming from? Follow that, especially after you decided for yourself that you want to create some inspiration.
Right.
Because as soon as you decide that you want to create some inspiration, the universe is going to respond.
Yes.
You just have to be aware of the messages that come to you via a phone call, via a commercial you see on TV, via something you find on the floor, whatever, being something that comes from your head and heart. Follow the impulse that leads to the thing, because that's going to lead to the thing that leads to the thing that leads to the thing, which is the thread being pulled. That's exactly. So if it's if you can't sing, no worries. Follow the impulse anyway. As then you will meet the person that this, you know, and you'll tell this person that I like to sing, but really my talent is in writing.
Uh-huh.
And really my talent is in producing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to lead you to something that's going to lead you to something that's going to create a passion for you that you don't know from this side of the equation. That's why it's important to engage in activities that give you life, that give you a certain amount of enjoyment.
Yes.
With the awareness of inspiration in your mind, and then allowing things to come into fruition from around you that flourish that. And then the only last thing I'll say is that, you know, I thought about the iceberg scenario that we talked about in the book too many times, and that most of the iceberg's power comes from underneath the water. Right. And you see an iceberg coming to a ship, and it looks so puny. You know, it's a big ship, and it's got this this iceberg slowly coming, and then you see it hit the ship, and it just starts breaking the ship up like a matchbox. That's because the biggest power is beneath the water. Right. The unseen. It's still physical, but just the analogy of the greatest amount of power coming from the unseen force, if you will. Right. Right. So that's all I wanted to say on it, man. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely been a great day, you know, in speaking about inspiration and motivation and those differences between those things, and how to discover your own, you know, inspiration. And, you know, we talked about, just wrapping it up, same as you, in terms of, you know, being in that quiet space of allowance, being grounded, setting an intention, first of all, of you are definitely in search of what you're inspired to do, but not forcing it, not muscling it to come to you, but just simply being in that space, in that moment. And then, like you said, being aware, because once you set that intention, the universe is going to respond to that intention, and these things are going to start to come into your path and your experience. It's 100% of the time. Yes, 100%. Like this is not sometimes. No, not sometimes, all of the time. That's why it's important to pay attention, you know, and not just neglect those things that we consider, oh, that's just a coincidence. I was just thinking about that, but then not acting on it. Right. As you already said, that it's important to pull that thread. And once you identify this thing, once you've set that intention, you identified it, and now something happens, like you said, something on the floor, something on television, it's important to act on it. That's beginning to pull the thread. And you keep pulling the thread, and you will get to exactly where you want to go. Right. We have that power. Align to Enlighten is about spiritual empowerment. And this is our job, or what we feel is our job, is our passion, is to help share this information with as many people who are willing to hear. So absolutely. We want to thank you all for being with us today once again. Absolutely. Align to Enlighten, everyday enlightenment is what this everyday enlightenment. Everyday enlightenment. Simple, right? For every person. So we'll catch y'all next time. All right. All right. Peace and love.